After I posted my class from last Thursday, my friend, as well as teacher, David Bromwich, sent me an email. And what we're going to do today is we're going to read his email together. I asked for his permission, and he said that it's okay for me to make public his email to me. Okay, so he said, I just watched your video. There's a thought I've been meaning to pass on, and this latest talk crystallized it. You travel fast in your explanations with a satisfying definiteness and say a lot of true things that timid people stay clear of. Okay, so what he's saying is that my videos are getting very popular online because I provide some certainty, some clarity in a very unclear and uncertain time. The risk is simplification, which your audience won't quite recognize for what it is, or won't unless you give occasional notice of the fact. Okay, so this is a very fair criticism in that by seeking clarity, I oversimplify ideas. And sometimes when people see someone who's very confident, they don't really remember that a lot of this is speculation and oversimplification for the sake of clarity. So it's very important for us to remember this fact that this is a class about intellectual speculation. Here we explore ideas that are not explored anywhere else. And often I will wing it, or I will make things up as I go along based on my intuition and based on my imagination. And it's very interesting, but it's not scholarship. And my friend David Bromwich, he is actually one of America's greatest scholars. So he's just reminding us of the fact that we have to be very careful that in the exploration of ideas, we also want to be rigorous. I remarked something like this early in talks on the rise of Germany, Romanticism, etc. Yeah, so I do this a lot. You give memorable abridgments of the history of ideas and imagination. What needs underlying is the amount that is interpretation with an emphasis all your own. Okay, so again, I hate to remind everyone this, but this is all my speculation. And I'm just presenting frameworks and ideas for you to explore by yourself. Emphatically, so in your reading of Paradise Lost, an allegory of necessity of transgression for the sake of knowledge, whereby Adam and Eve and Satan all become joint heroes of the fable. That is Blake's reading and a powerful intuition, but it probably isn't the way most readers take the poem, let alone the canonical national reading, to identify with 17th century New England and the US ever after. Okay, so this is a very fair criticism, and he should know because he is one of America's major professors of English literature. I studied English literature under him, and he knows Paradise Lost very well. And he's absolutely right in that I am offering you a very minority interpretation of Paradise Lost. Why I'm doing so will be clear as this semester comes to an end. Because for the rest of the semester, I want to focus on artificial intelligence and the occult. And so it's very important for us to understand occult ideas embedded in the great books such as Paradise Lost. Okay, but again, this is a very fair criticism in that I'm not presenting to you the majority understanding of these texts. And I should have done that to begin with. You struck out on a more risky terrain in viewing a Jewish Gnostic derivation from the Kabbalah as the national ideology of Israel. I know this material from Gershom Shalom's essay, Redemption Through Sin. Okay, so Gershom Shalom is probably the most famous academic in Israel. He's no longer alive, but he studied the Kabbalah academically. And his interpretation of the Kabbalah is very much aligned with my own, even though I myself never read Gershom Shalom. And actually, what's interesting is that Gershom Shalom had a very huge influence on a man named Harold Bloom. Harold Bloom is, or was, America's greatest literary critic. And he had a huge influence on David Bromwich, who then had a huge influence on me. Okay? It is an element of the settler religiosity, so far as I know, or conservative reception of the Torah, any more than it was of the socialist idealism of the left Zionists of 1948 who set the political tone of Israel until 1967. Again, this is my problem where I should have gone into the different ideologies of Israel and shown that this Gnostic understanding of Kabbalah is an extreme version. Okay? The shorthand leads you into a kind of business that can easily be misunderstood. Thus, in talking about the support of non-Israeli Jews for the Jewish state, you said that throughout the world, Jews are wealthy. Again, this is my problem where I make rationalizations because I'm moving too fast, I'm oversimplifying, and often I'm working from intuition as opposed to rigorous scholarship. Watch out. The world is full of people who want to misunderstand what you mean, and they will separate words and phrases from the context at the drop of a hat. So when I started this class about 2 years ago, I was using this class and this platform as a way for me to explore ideas with a larger world. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to see it, I've become very famous these past few months. And so a lot of what I say now is under intense scrutiny. And a lot of things I say will be taken out of context. And so I should be more aware of that. At the same time, I don't want to sacrifice this platform where I can speculate freely because I think it's very important now and then to engage in intellectual speculation. At bottom, you seem to be presenting this thesis. All great power or expansion states, whether they be Muslim, Protestant, Jewish, have a fanatical religious belief at their foundation. The eschatological underside is what matters most. The key to understanding what the states are and we're always ultimately about. Okay, this is the main thesis of my talk from last class. In that, yes, we tend to ignore religion, and we tend to ignore the most extreme aspects of religion. But if you want to understand history, if you want to understand current events and geopolitics, you need to understand these extremists because it's often these people and this ideology that becomes the force that drives geopolitics forward. And that was my thesis from last class. So David Bromwich is just stating or summarizing my major point. But I should have really made that clear last class. Okay, why not say that part aloud if I'm right that your view is anti-statist and anti-religion? Okay, so here what we should have done is David Bromwich and I should have sat down together and had this conversation where I explained to him, like, my project is not to discuss what is good and what is evil. That I don't think is actually particularly useful. What I'm trying to do, my major project, is to figure out how the world works and be non-judgmental in my speculation. With apologies for these possibly unnecessary words, but now seems the time to say it. What the US and Israel are doing to Iran is awful. You're working hard to inform people about it, and every detail should count, okay? So there's so much in this email, and I could easily sit down with David Bromwich for a few hours and just discuss these ideas in great detail. I think this would be of tremendous service to my audience. Because whereas what I specialize in is intuition, imagination, taking complex things and combining them into a clear, simple narrative, David Bromwich, because he's such an eminent scholar, he appreciates the nuance and subtlety to ideas. So I think that what I would like to do for my next project is work with David Bromwich and do a series of podcasts in which we discuss these ideas together and explore these ideas, engage in intellectual speculation, but also back it up with a lot of academic scholarship. And so I emailed David Bromwich, and he's agreed to this idea. So this is a project I'll be working on in the future, and I'm really looking forward to presenting it to the world when we're done. Okay, all right. So let's start class. And today, I want to start artificial intelligence. And this is a major theme that will carry us through to the rest of the semester, okay? And so for this class, I want to introduce a book called Empire of AI, written by a journalist named Karen Howe. She is an American journalist, and she spent many decades researching OpenAI. and writing about the advent of AI for major publications, including the Wall Street Journal. And she has a very skeptical view of AI. I share her skepticism, okay? So what I'm going to do this class is share with you my understanding of AI. I'm going to get some things wrong, okay? So feel free to ask questions, feel free to criticize me, feel free to stop me if I'm not clear. All right, so let's start class. AI. All right, so these are our main ideas from the book, okay? So I give you the page reference in case you actually want to read the book yourself, and I highly recommend that you do to fully understand the context of these ideas. Okay, so let's read these two paragraphs, which provide us the main thesis of her argument. Okay, so Alan, could you help me read, please? Yeah.
6 years after my initial skepticism about OpenAI's altruism, I've come to firmly believe that OpenAI's mission to ensure AGI benefits all of humanity may have begun as a sincere stroke of idealism, but it has since become a uniquely potent formula for consolidating resources and constructing an empire as a power structure. It is a formula with 3 ingredients.
Okay, all right, so stop. Okay, all right. So this book is mainly about OpenAI, which is also the most important artificial intelligence company in the world right now because they were the ones who pioneered ChatGPT, okay? And it started off as a project sponsored by Elon Musk and others because they were concerned that AGI, artificial general intelligence, would be a threat to humanity. So they wanted to develop AI in a way that would serve humanity as opposed to threaten humanity. And so at first, it was a very noble mission. Okay, keep on going. Yeah.
First, the mission centralized talent by relying them around a grand ambition, exactly in the way John McAfee did with his coining of the phrase artificial intelligence. The most successful founders do not set out to create companies. Altman reflected on his blog in 2013. They are on a mission to create something closer to a religion. And at some point, it turned out that forming a company is the easiest way to do so.
Okay, so again, it started off as an idealistic mission, but now its main focus is to become an empire. And there are 3 ways in which it is trying to become an empire. First of all, it's trying to be a religion, because as Sam Altman, who's now the leader of OpenAI, says, if you really want to change the world, if you really want to build an empire, you need to start a religion. And so a company is just a vessel in which to incubate this religion, okay? So one, it's a religion. Second thing about OpenAI and other AI companies is that it is focused on relentless expansion. And that means building data centers everywhere and anywhere. Okay, so OpenAI wants about $1 trillion to build lots of data centers around the world. Because if you really want AI to be successful, you have to first conquer the world, okay? So it's not really about making AI safe for humans. It's about making the world safe for AI, all right? To make basically humans slaves to AI. That's the second thing. And the third thing is, and this is most important, is they refuse to define what artificial intelligence is. They're constantly changing the definition of AGI in order to better control the world, okay? And we'll see what this means later on, okay? Can you read this paragraph, Alan?
My conversation with Brockman and Xueqin continued in circle until we ran out the clock after 45 minutes. I tried with little success to get more concrete details on what exactly they were trying to build, which by nature they explained they couldn't know. And why then, if they couldn't know, they were so confident it would be beneficial?
Okay, so this is a really huge problem. So Karen House, a reporter, she was working for the Technology Review at MIT. In 2019, she goes to Silicon Valley and she meets with Brockman and Xueqin, who are the 2 main scientists behind the OpenAI project. And the first question she's going to ask, and anyone should ask, is what is AGI? What is AI? What are you trying to build? And they could not answer the question. Okay? It's not because they don't know, it's because the truth is too scary. And what we're going to do is figure out what the truth is. What is AI? What is artificial intelligence? What is AGI? And the answer, of course, is it's God. What Brockman and Xueqin could not tell Karen Howell is that we're trying to create God because that is insane, evil, and stupid. But if you look at what they're doing, that's exactly what they're trying to do, okay? All right,